When you were a kid, what was a movie that left you absolutely traumatized?
Not a movie you watched too young, I mean a show that's for kids that still kept you up at night. Adam from YourMovieSucks.org made a video series on this topic and invited other creators to join in.
I'm Kat from MightyMayhem.com, and I thought I'd crash the party, so join me as I relive the scenes from movies that made me scared of the dark, as I relive my own childhood trauma.
The 80s was a great decade for fantasy movies. It was also a great decade for scaring the crap out of 6-year-old Kat. I was an imaginative little kid, and I loved watching these movies over and over, but I always had a sense of dread in the back of my mind, knowing that certain scenes were coming up. Number 3, Willow.
Willow gets the prize for traumatizing me as early as the opening credits.
An evil queen is on the hunt for a baby of prophecy.
Where's the baby?
But a nice old midwife sneaks the baby out of the castle. Oh, well, everything's gonna be fine then. Oh, geez, what's that? Come on, being chased by dogs wasn't enough? They had to be monster dogs? Run, woman, run! Less than 5 minutes into this PG movie, this nice old lady gets ripped into shreds with no way to defend herself and no one to hear her screams. Something about that midwife dying alone in the woods really got under my skin.
The movie foreshadows another threat from the very beginning.
Are you scared, Dada?
No.
Even with trolls? Trolls that'll skin you alive and take your face off?
You know I hate trolls.
But when the trolls actually show up, they're not that scary. Oh geez, never mind, it ripped off its own skin. Ugh. Yeah, kick it, Willow. Get that crap out of here. Well, it certainly seemed like a good idea. This dragon terrified me as a kid. If it just looked like a regular cliche dragon, I think I could have got my head around it. But this was a monster I'd never dreamed of before. Those exposed gums and teeth, that scrotal double chin, the jerky claymation as it rips trolls apart like dinner rolls. As a kid, this was a scene that would just paralyze me with fear. I'd want to look away, but just couldn't.
And just 5 minutes later, there's another scene that disturbed me even more.
Just when I thought the evil queen couldn't be any scarier, she turns an entire army into pigs. Which sounds like a nice alternative to murder, maybe even cute.
But they had to blast my innocent child eyes with the transformation.
This look of dismay on Mad Mardigan's face as he watches his own hand become a trotter. Is he even aware of those tusks coming out as he screams in agony, watching his body morph into a half-beast? Ugh. It's like the island of Dr. Moreau, which at least had the decency to be rated PG-13 and unwatched by anyone. And it also starred Val Kilmer? Weird.
I could handle the two-headed dragon to some extent. Even fairy tales have monsters eating people. But this freaky transformation was my first introduction to body horror.
The monster's inside you. The monster is you. And none of your friends can help or even care because they're strewn across the battlefield screaming and thrashing around half-transformed too.
It's a Kafka-esque existential nightmare. This movie only wins the number 3 slot of my childhood trauma movies.
Number 2, Labyrinth. I'm giving an honorable mention to the Fireys in this movie. These guys look so gruesome, they give the Dark Crystal puppets a run for their money. But it's the gleeful way they rip themselves apart that really horrified me. Plucking out their own eyeballs, revealing hollow eye sockets in a kids' movie?
What were the writers thinking?
But that wasn't the scene that really made childhood Kat piss the bed. It was those dang goblins from the very beginning of the movie. Just talking about them is dangerous, because they wake up when you mention them.
Listen.
Oh geez, they've all got glowing eyes and they're packed shoulder to shoulder in this girl's closet because of course they are. These things look horrendous. All of them waiting and watching for this girl to make one wrong move, scurrying just out of sight at the edges of her peripheral vision, nudging the rocking horse and lurking in the crib. I may as well blame this scene for my lasting aversion to babies while I'm at it.
As a kid, I had this suspicion that grown-ups knew way more than they let on about the supernatural. They seemed to know all about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but they were tight-lipped about the details. Couldn't goblins fit in the same category? I mean, maybe my parents were telling me that goblins don't exist because they don't exist. Or maybe they were telling me they don't exist because there's nothing you could do about it anyway, so just go to sleep and hope for the best.
Yeah, I wasn't falling for that. The goblins only seemed to appear in the dark, so I slept with the lights on until I was about 8 or 10 years old. These same goblins didn't bother me when we see them in the Goblin City later. They're in their own world where goblins belong. But this scene confirmed what my child's brain already feared. Fantasy and reality can meet in a darkened bedroom. Goblins are real, and they're right in your closet. One false move, and you're toast, Missy. Number 1, The Never-Ending Story.
The Never-Ending Story was a weird, intense movie, and as a weird, intense kid, it was right up my alley. But this movie disturbs me on a deep psychological level, proving that something doesn't have to be scary to be traumatic.
Long after I'd outgrown my fear of goblins and dragons, this movie still haunted my dreams. An unstoppable force of emptiness called the Nothing is ripping the world apart, and a young warrior named Atreyu is sent off alone to find a way to stop it. Atreyu really inspired me as a kid, but this movie is frickin' brutal and really pushed the boundaries of its PG rating. Only 5 minutes into his quest, Atreyu loses Artax, his beloved horse. Artax isn't stuck. The swamps of sadness drained his will to live. Atreyu tries everything he can think of to save him, encouraging him,
Come on, boy.
pulling him,
Come on, turn around.
sweet-talking him,
You're my friend. I love you.
and scolding him.
Stupid horse.
But in the end,
I won't give up. Don't quit. Attacks.
this was my first glimpse of how it feels to watch a loved one suffering from depression. You want to help them, even save them, but this scene taught me that you can't really make somebody change, no matter how much you love them or how hard you try. Pretty tough stuff for an 8-year-old.
And if you thought this scene was depressing, in the original book, Artax can talk, so you know exactly what's going through his mind as he surrenders to despair and loses his will to live.
You know, for kids.
Deeper in the swamp, Atreyu finds Morla, the Ancient One. The sheer size of this monster freaked me out. She keeps sending Atreyu flying with her gale force sneezes. But the thing that really upset me about this scene was her apathy towards a life or death situation.
I bring terrible news. Did you know that the Empress is very ill?
Not that it matters, but yes, actually, we don't care.
Wait, what? Aren't the adults in kids' movies supposed to be caring and wise?
There's a terrible nothing sweeping over the land. Don't you care about that?
We don't even care whether or not we care.
This scene drove me crazy. In my mind, Morla became a stand-in for all blasé adults who'd crush a kid's hopes and then act all smug about it like they're doing them a favor. But spreading hopelessness isn't noble or enlightening, it's lazy. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. Morla's cynicism has real-world consequences. After all her nihilistic, forget it, nothing matters talk, Atreyu loses hope and starts to sink. He would have died a useless death like Artax if the dragon Falkor didn't reach him in time. Falkor's the closest thing we get to a helpful adult in this movie. He has an optimistic outlook and a soothing, non-anxious presence. To my kid mind, he represented those rare adults who would really listen to me and take me seriously.
Things will work out fine, Atreyu.
His presence is pretty minimal in this movie, but it makes all the difference in success or failure of Atreyu's quest, proving even a small amount of light can push past a whole lot of darkness.
But Falkor can't always be there. Atreyu faces his most terrifying trials completely alone. And when I felt like challenging myself, I'd watch the scene of Atreyu facing the Sphinx's gate.
Fancy armor doesn't help. The Sphinxes can see straight into your heart.
You better hope those statues keep their eyes shut, because if they sense a shred of doubt in you... Atreyu sees the last guy get turned into beef jerky and he still keeps going? This whole scene feels like it goes on forever. I'd watch those eyelids for signs of motion, internally screaming, "Run, Atreyu!" Or maybe I'd chicken out and fast forward through this part. After surviving this ordeal, Atreyu finds out the Nothing is spreading like wildfire. The Rockbiter tried to hold on to his friends, but the Nothing snatched them right out of his massive hands.
The Nothing will be here any minute. I will just sit here and let it take me away too.
This scene made me want to cry and pissed me off at the same time. The Rockbiter was one of my favorite characters, but now he's basically committing suicide?
I didn't blame him for the death of his friends, I blamed him for giving up. I blamed cynical characters like Morla for feeding into his hopeless outlook. Was Atreyu ever going to catch a freaking break? But then it was time for the climax of all this mind-bending horror, Atreyu's final confrontation with the Gmork.
If you come any closer, I will rip you to shreds. I am the Gmork.
The animatronics for this monster convinced me he was real. That sneering lip, flaring nostrils, the glowering green eyes. The cuts and sores on its lip made it look like real flesh.
Foolish boy. Don't you know anything about Fantasia? It's the world of human fantasy.
But why is Fantasia dying then?
Because people have begun to lose their hopes and forget their dreams.
The Neverending Story is surprisingly deep and psychological for a kid's movie. The adversary of the nothing isn't just something that Atreyu can just strike down with a sword.
What is the nothing?
It's the emptiness that's left. It is like a despair destroying this world.
And I see that despair still spreading today. Like when people spread bad news and fear-mongering headlines online. Is it actually causing any helpful change? Or is it just dividing us and making us hate each other more and more?
Because people who have no hopes are easy to control. And whoever has the control has the power.
That's why The Neverending Story wins my #1 slot for childhood trauma. Because unlike dragons and goblins, this adversary is actually real. Whether we like it or not, our words and attitudes affect people. It's so easy to slide into hopelessness, and it takes a lot of backbone to stand against it.
If we're about to die anyway, I'd rather die fighting! Come for me, Gmork! I am Atreyu!
Like a boss.
This movie taught me how to stand my ground against hopelessness and haters, to face the darkness that makes me want to quit and say, "Come for me, Gmork. I am Atreyu."